3. The people that I chose to interview were Brett Abbott, who's a Roosevelt Elementary School building principal, Ashley Bargman, who is a high school special education teacher, and Linda Pekin, who serves as a paraprofessional in the high school. So the first question that I posed to them was, what procedures do you feel your school or you use to identify students for special education? Starting with Brett, one of the things that he really pointed out to me is that this is a lengthy process. Like, this just doesn't happen overnight. Students that are discrepant from their peers, teachers are providing special education or general education interventions in a tier 1 aspect. After they have collected a lot of data, usually between 6 to 8 weeks worth, they are turning that over to their decision team, and their decision team is going to look at that data and determine, are they still discrepant from their peers, and what types of tier 2 interventions can we provide to these students. Now, Ashley gave me a little bit more of a straightforward answer. Students who qualify for special education, it doesn't just happen overnight. It is such a rigorous process, and I think that's probably one of the misconceptions, is what she pointed out, is that parents, guardians really think this happens overnight, and it doesn't. Now, Linda, being a paraprofessional, comes from a different background and is working with the kids one-on-one in the classroom. She sees these kids, before they are staffed or not staffed. And she really said that the team makes that decision from what she sees, and that really it has to do with a lot of collaboration between the student, the parents, and really just the staff. But she knows that everything comes back to the data. That's one of the things they're really required to keep, because they're in the classrooms with the students all the time. The next question that I asked was, what is the most challenging part of your position in regards to special education? So I was really interested in just knowing some of the challenges that they face on a daily basis. So starting with Brett, really what he felt like was the biggest challenge for him was just not being able to cater to every single student and parent need. Now, we know that parents want the best for their kids want the best for themselves, but also we have to be considerate of the process and the procedures, is kind of what he said. So we have to keep that into consideration, because it is challenging when you can't give people what they want all the time. Ashley kind of followed that up and echoed some things, but really she said, a lot of it is the conversations with the parents, but also that everything has to be considered as a team. There is not one individual decision, it is all team-based. And then Linda kind of echoed both of them by saying, it is a team decision. I keep hearing the word team, and that was something that'll trend throughout this interview for all 3 of them, was that, some students that are in the classroom that are facing a lot of hardships and challenges and content, they don't qualify for services after those data points are collected, that they may not be as discrepant from their peers, or parents just don't want to pursue special education services. So Linda has been in the classroom and has seen that happen firsthand. The next question that I really wanted to uplift after, we talked about challenges, was just rewards. What is the most rewarding part of your job? And so Brett just said, basically he loves to see students excel. He loves to see the achievement that students, they're able to overcome and achieve. So I thought that was really neat to hear. Ashley kind of pointed out something that was a little more stigma related, and I really appreciated that, was that they try not to keep it as a life sentence, that students constantly need to be celebrated, and that they need to know they're making growth with the services and the accommodations that they're being provided, so that they know that this is not a lifelong thing, that this is something that they can certainly move out of with all the supports in place. And then Linda just said, working with the students to overcome difficult content and tasks were one of the areas that she deals the most with. She's in the classroom with students. She's not a one-on-one para, but she is in a class just about every period of the day. So she is helping different students, and really she's had a lot of work working with students to overcome difficult content, chemistry, higher level English, college English, and even some of the more difficult, like agricultural classes and welding, things that she has really been exposed to. So she's helped students really overcome some of those difficult things. My next question, really, and this was important, especially after the article that we had read about administrators, kind of lacking in special education background, is what advice can you give to future administrators in regards to special education? Now, Brett is a little bit different because he comes from a special education background, but really what he pointed out was that you need to be involved. Like, plain and simple, you have to be involved and you have to know the state and the federal documents, and you have to know when to submit them. I think that is very challenging because everything is time stamped from the start to the finish, so he really pointed that out. Ashley said, basically, you have to know that you are the LEA, Local Education Agency representative for your school, and you're responsible for, heading up those meetings and really being a part of that. That's not something that you should be delegating. It's something that you really should have a good grasp on. So I really appreciated her answer on that. And then finally, Linda kind of said, just being willing to be a part of that journey, that we go back to Ashley saying that this isn't a life sentence. We want students to be able to grow and to achieve. And so Linda really echoed that with, be willing to be a part of the student's journey and be willing to support them so that this isn't something that becomes permanent, that we are helping students to achieve. The next question that I asked was, how do you work with parents of these students? And so Brett started off by just really pointing out that you need to help them become informed with the process, that this is a very lengthy and a very time and step-oriented process. You really have to collaborate and conversate with them so that they know. Ashley talked a lot about heavily relying on the input of the parents because they know their child the best, especially with some of those surveys and background information when they're starting to get a handle on the student. They really want parent feedback. Also the other thing that you have to consider is, parent notices, meeting notices, really talking with the parents so that they can be there and they can be a part of that process. And then Linda just kind of echoed both of them by just saying communication heavy, that there has to be so much communication amongst all people involved in the process, not just between the teacher and the parents, but rather everyone. The next question that I asked was, how do your special education teachers work with the general education teachers? And I think this is really important because it gives a little bit of perspective from all the different people here. So as a building principal, Brett said that really it's about co-teaching. It's about ensuring that students are inclusive and when they need to be pulled out, that the services that they are receiving are really, they're meaningful, and trying to protect that core content experience for those students so that the students are able to have that. Ashley kind of provided the fact that she's a teacher, so she is co-teaching, so she brought up the collaboration across the curriculum, which I think is highly important, especially being a teacher who co-teaches with a special education teacher, knowing that. And then Linda bringing the paraprofessional standpoint into the mix. She's really data heavy because that is part of her job in the classroom, is to pull those data points to really monitor students. And so one of the things that she brought up is just that, the achievement gap and basically being able to collaborate amongst the teachers and ensuring that students are all on the same page. Then I asked, for question number 7 is, what advice can you give to a first-year administrator? So from the building administrator that I interviewed, listening was heavy from him. He echoed, just being, listen with an empty mind and truly and deeply understand the process, that you understand what is happening in your school. You understand that all people are on the same page, that we're not doing 3 different processes in 3 different classrooms, that it's very cohesive. Ashley kind of went as far as the listening, she brought that up, but she also talked more about relationships. That relationships are such a key component in the student and the parent, and then the administration and the teacher and paraprofessional. Everybody involved, there has to be a strong, cohesive relationship there. And then Linda, as a paraprofessional, just talking and being on the front lines with the students most of the time, listen and relationships are just a key for her. When she's not doing those things, She says that she just doesn't feel like she's best serving kids, so that is what she leads with. How would you describe the role of special education teacher and the building principal? This was very interesting because everybody keeps coming back to the team. As I stated before, this whole interview process everything was about the team, and I thought that was really powerful because that is part of education. Team is such a heavy thing. From PLCs to, just in general, professional development and building wide, curriculum. Everything is so team oriented. So Brett really had said here that, the teacher for special education and the building principal have to be a team. They have to understand the instruction that's going on, and they really have to be able to question and to ensure that the instruction that's happening is quality and it is meeting the needs of the student. Ashley talked about the building principal is willing to understand what's going on in the classroom, but also not just understanding, but willing to step in or provide support when needed. That is so important because a lot of times, especially in the article that we had read, principals have so much going on that being able to step in and try and provide support is just another thing. But really, it is so important for that achievement gap. In Iowa, we have an Iowa report card that comes out every year, and one of the biggest metrics is that achievement gap area. So we really have to focus on that here. Linda Pekin had talked just a little bit about supporting each other. That she sees that when it works well, special education and the administrator are on the same page, and they're there for the student. Question 9 talked about what characteristics do you seek in an inspiring administrator in regards to special education? Now, this is interesting because Brett Abbott's is in a 4A school, which is a very large school district, a little over 10,000 kids. And then Ashley and Linda come from a PK-12 school where there's about 48 kids per class. That might be high. So thinking about that, Brett talked about how special education needs to be a process that supports the core curriculum. Now, we also have to consider here that it needs to be somebody that can kind of intertwine and provide students with the support that they need to meet the deficiencies of where, they can raise themselves to be where their peers are at, but also to still give them the instruction that they deserve or expose them to the instruction that they need. Ashley talked a lot about how all administrators should have knowledge of it and just be understanding of the special education process because it is so direct and there's so much law and procedure that is involved with it, so that is so important. Linda talked about just having an eye for the achievement of the student, the growth of the student, and then really just supporting that student throughout their process of special education. Finally, I just followed it up with a question of any words of advice that you can provide someone in regards to special education services. And this is just really great because it really brings it back to the core of, listen, relationship, collaborate, team. Like those are really the 4 takeaways from this interview process. But Brett really said, listen, learn, support. And I think that those really are echoed throughout this entire interview process. Ashley followed it up by saying, support. Just ensuring that you're continuously providing it, that you're supporting it, that you're observing it, that you're watching it, and that you're really helping that student through the process. And then Linda just said, listen to your teachers, learn what they have to say. And then not only that, but making sure that when you're listening and you're learning, you're really taking that into account because with her being a prepared professional, she is in the classroom really providing those things to the student, and she wants to ensure that she is providing what the special education teacher has directed per the plan. So this is a really great opportunity for me to get some information from all different levels, all of which are very important people that play a huge role in the process of education and in general in my classroom and in just children's lives. So I was really appreciative of this assignment, very reflective, and it really gave me some great insight as a future administrator.